Hi, my name is Sathivashan Vidyalathan Natarajan. I am here to demonstrate my understanding of various AWS services and how we implemented them in this specific project. So in this project, I have developed a cloud-based solution for processing, storing, and updating transaction data. I've utilized various AWS services such as Lambda function, SQL, simple queue services, RDS database, and Redshift data warehouse system to create an efficient and scalable architecture. In this video, I'll be providing a detailed walkthrough of the architecture and the main component of the solution. I will also be explaining the different AWS services used, their roles and the data pipelines and how they interact with each other and etc. I'll also be showing some of the code snippets and explaining the codes and like how they're connecting with each and every different elements and services. So I have also created a document and I have attached this document as part of the solution. And this document also consists of all the architecture diagram, code snippets, and explanation. So let's start with the architecture explanation. And first of all, I'm sending a JSON payload. It's getting sent to a Lambda function via a gateway endpoint. This Lambda function is triggered by this endpoint. So this sends whatever messages it receives to the queue. I'm using a SQL, simple queue service here, because if we have millions of transactions, we should not me sending up any of the incoming records. So SQS stores all the records until it gets processed. So once SQS gets a message, it then triggers another Lambda function. So this Lambda function processes all the messages in the SQS queue. So once the messages gets processed, this Lambda function updates the RDS table. And as well as what it does is it gets the newly updated record, the order ID, and send it to the another queue. So this is done because as per the requirement, every 15 minutes we have to update the Redshift database. And for that, we need to store this data somewhere. So I'm using SQS queue again to store all the newly inserted data. And every 15 minutes, another Lambda function will get triggered. This Lambda function pulls the messages from this SQS queue and process it. So once the messages get processed, it then updates the Redshift database. And one of the other requirement is to generate views, and this views should be able to automatically refresh every day at 2 a.m. That is 24 hours once. Also, there should be another way to refresh the views manually if required, because this view is going to get connected with some kind of dashboarding tools. And for that, I have used API gateway endpoint. This is to manually refresh the view. So if you go to this endpoint and trigger it, then this function will get executed. This will get triggered. I've also connected this AWS Lambda with the CloudWatch event so that it will get triggered at every day at 2 a.m. So let's go to. So this is the dashboarding tool. So right now we'll try to. So we have a VA state, which is only one, and we'll try to add one more time. This is I'm showing because of the real-time implementation. And let's check our MySQL database. So if I execute this, so we have all different kinds of, I have around 29 customers. And right now we are trying to implement a person who's living in Virginia. And for this, Virginia, they have a veggie pizza already. And let's say we'll add cheese pizza. So let's go to Postman. We'll change the 29. So if I send this request, as soon as it gets sent, so we have a success status code. And if we go to MySQL Workbench and refresh the transaction table, so you can see the latest order which we sent is coming here. So that will be the 29th order. And this order right now won't be in the Redshift database because the Redshift database haven't been updated yet. So if I execute this database, so this doesn't have the latest order ID, which is 29. So let me give you the flow here. So this is the endpoint, and once I hit this endpoint, it directly goes to the API gateway. API gateway is responsible for this post event. Once this API gateway gets a message, it then triggers a post transaction lambda function. As you can see, this is linked here. And this post transaction lambda function has code snippet. This code snippet sends the message to SQS queue using this queue URL. And once this once we send that message, this is the message. So right now we can't see, there won't be any message available, because as soon as this queue gets a message, the next function is triggered. And this you can see by here, like we are using the trigger function for lambda function as SQS. So once this process transaction lambda function gets executed, I'm first using MySQL library as a connector. I'm initiating connection with RDS database. So once I initiate a connection with that database, I'm processing all the records in the message, and that message will then get inserted into the RDS database using this insert statement query. And after that, whatever the data I inserted, I'm getting it back with the new order ID, and I'm sending the new order ID to another SQS queue using this line. So this queue. So if we can come right now, if I refresh this queue, we should be able to see one message is available, because that messages haven't been processed by the next lambda function again, because every 15 minutes only the lambda function will get triggered. So for this video demo purposes, what I'll do is I'll run this function once, so that that particular function got processed. And if you again come here and refresh the thing, the message should be 0, because it already got processed. So because it already got processed, and right now if we go to our database and if we run this, we should be able to see the 29, as you can see here. So this update function, what it does is, it first initiate a connection with RDS, get the record from the RDS for the latest order or whatever the orders we have in our SQS queue. Then it gets all the details. It then generates an SQL statement and insert them into an Redshift database. And Redshift database connection, I'm using a Redshift data API. This is provided by AWS, and I'm using this initial connection. And with this statement, whatever the statement, like the insert function will get executed, so that the Redshift table will be updated every 15 minutes once. So in order to generate views, I have a separate function called generate function. And here it's connected with the API gateway as well as Event Bridge CloudWatch event. So CloudWatch event, what it does is every 24 hours, it will trigger this generate view, so that the views will get refreshed. Otherwise, if you want to do it manually, we can use the API gateway. And if I already have a materialized view generated here, and if I run the select sales by statement, we won't be able to see the newly inserted record, because the refresh is not updated yet. And as you can see, for VA, we can only see only one entry. But if I go to Postman, let's say we want to manually refresh it, I go there and I send it. So we'll be getting a status response 200 and views refreshed successfully. And now if I run the select sales by state again, we'll be able to see to VA, which is another. So this will be the latest entry we added. So with this, we can get the real-time data. And to show this, this is the real-time data. I can also come here. So right now we don't see two VAs here, like Virginia data. If I refresh the data here, then we should be able to see another VA. And yeah, so this is how I have designed my whole architecture diagram. And this is the CloudWatch event. As you can see, this trigger update Redshift event will get every 15 minutes. So you can see the next 10 triggers here, as well as the same thing for the generate views function. This gets triggered only once a day at 2 o'clock, 2 a.m. GMT time. So till next 10 days. And this is the whole flow of my diagram, and pretty much it. Thank you.